Mustache Tales.
Yeah!
Hey, it's Chandrasekhar with my good buddy Hayes MacArthur at a new episode of Mustache Tales. Today, our guest is our good friend Mike Roos, former left tackle of the Tennessee Titans, all-pro. We're going to hear all about the NFL and all sorts of stuff. But first, Hayes, we're going to start with your mustache tale.
My mustache tale is inspired by Mike today, Jay. We have an all-pro offensive tackle on, and it harkened me back to my days of playing. And, you know, you don't say former NFL player. I say NFL player, Mike, out of respect. It's like a Marine. You're not a former Marine. Once you're in the league, I feel like you should always be referred to in present tense.
It's like Mr. President. It's like Mr. President.
You're always Mr. President. It's the brotherhood. You're in the brotherhood. I almost made it into the brotherhood, but I played semi-pro football for 2 years. Emphasis on the semi. So I played for a team after my illustrious college career. I played for a team called the Los Angeles Gunslingers. And it was a semi-pro team based in California. We played teams like the Bakersfield Heat, the Reno Raiders, the Bay Delta Nightmares, which was one of my favorite team names. And then we played a team out of Long Beach called the Long Beach All-Stars. And the Long Beach All-Stars had a player owner, and I'll give you his first, middle, and last name. The player owner was Snoop Doggy Dogg, was the player owner of this team out of Long Beach. And so I had been playing for this team, the Gunslingers, for a couple years. And I realized we were called the Gunslingers because like half the guys on the team had guns. But it was a mix of guys who were either in the league and didn't play anymore, or were in trying to get a JC scholarship, or just guys like me who were doing a beer league. So we went down to play the Long Beach All-Stars. Unbeknownst to me, we had played a bunch of games. I played in the Staples Center, drove all over the state. So sometimes we'd be an arena team, sometimes we'd be an 11-man team out on the field. I did not know that the Long Beach All-Stars and the Gunslingers, regardless of being rivals in football, there was some gang stuff happening between these two regions of Southern California that I didn't become hip to until we were playing against Snoop. And he liked to play. So Snoop would be on the sidelines, but then in the red zone, he would put himself in because he wanted to catch touchdown passes. And when he caught a touchdown pass, he would put his hands behind his back and get down on his knees. And I'd say to one of the guys, I go, well, why does Snoop do that when he catches a touchdown? He goes, well, because he thinks his moves are so nasty, they're illegal, and he should be arrested. So every time he did it, he would get down and put his hands behind his back. So we're playing Long Beach. It's like late on a Saturday night, you know, not a well-lit field. And I look at the refs. It's the only people in the stands are like Long Beach has all these people in the stands because they want to see Snoop. And the Gunslingers have we didn't have a player wives section. We just had like a baby mama section that was there. They were like, it looked like an empty carton of eggs. There were like 2 eggs in the crate. We had no fans. But when Snoop would run fade routes, the unspoken rule in the league was you don't hit Snoop. You know, it was just like you don't really want to lay a big hit on him. But our cornerback was a guy by the name of Music, and Music decided on an overthrown ball. Music laid Snoop out, like put him into the stands. He hit him under the chin and just rocked him. And Snoop's not a heavy guy, so if you hit him, he goes far. So Snoop, and I just thought it was a cheap hit on Music's part, but we're in the middle of this rivalry. All of a sudden, the place went nuts. Everyone started pouring onto the fields. There was a huge fight breaking out. I had no idea about the affiliations of why everybody was really fighting. I thought it was a football thing. I looked at the ref. I go, what do we do? I mean, it's like in the third quarter, middle of the game. He goes, I'm calling the game. I recommend you drive out of here immediately. So I left the stadium, more of a field than a stadium, and I drove home with my helmet and shoulder pads on down the freeway. I just evac'd, went up the 405
Probably
freeway.
the smart play.
I had to get out of there. So I know Mike's got a ton more stories about playing football and his whole life, but I just wanted to chime in with my semi-pro days.
I don't know that can be beat.
That's so awesome. I love it. I love that Snoop would play in a tackle football game like that. I find that to be like, he's such a badass that he would risk that.
He's so skinny too.
Yeah.
Like, surprised he didn't break
He
himself.
is so skinny. I mean, and when I stand next to him, I'm like, man, you are fucking skinny. Incredible.
He coaches a lot of youth. He does a lot of youth teams, like Pop Warner teams down there too, as a way to really keep kids, give them a sense of community. So he's done a lot of good things with the sport. The second part of that story, I forgot. So I had that moment where he got laid out, and then I found myself a year later visiting a friend who was a cast member on Saturday Night Live, and I was really excited to be at the show. And Snoop was the musical guest and the host. So when you get to go to the show, you kind of hang out, and there's like parties and drinks after. So I totally embarrassed myself because I was with a bunch of comedians, and Snoop was over in the corner. And I said, guys, watch this. I'm going to go up and say hi to Snoop. I'm going to blow his mind. I'm thinking he's going to hug me and be like, what are you doing in New York, Hayes? It's so good to see you. So I go over to him in this really crowded room, and I go, Snoop, Hayes MacArthur, quarterback, LA Gunslingers. And he just turned his back on me.
That's great.
He still holds a grudge, huh?
So either that or he was just like so blazed. He didn't know what was happening.
Probably both.
So Mike Roos, we've been friends for a long time. And look, can you just tell us, I know you're from Estonia, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't speak, is it Estonian?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Estonian. It's very similar to Finnish.
Sweet.
And so, I was born there. Then in 1992, right after the Soviet fell, my mom was already in the process of trying to bring us here just for a better life because she was a single mom with 3 kids, and there was no way in a just non-Soviet country she could raise us. So we flew over to Portland area originally, where my aunt was living, and she kind of took us in, and then we started our lives there, and just only spoke Estonian when we first got here, not a word of English, and that was fun going to 4th grade when you don't know what anything is, or trying to make sense of stuff. But slowly, it actually benefited my brother and I on the basketball courts a lot. We played in parks because we would just tell each other what to do in Estonian, and no one knew what was going on. Like, hey, have a backdoor cut or whatever. It's just do it in a different language.
But Estonia did not have, it borders, it's south of Finland and on the border with Russia. So it didn't have, you spoke Russian as well?
No, a lot of people do, but I didn't. My mom speaks Estonian, Russian, and English, but it's one of the 3 Baltic countries with Lithuania and Latvia there, bordering Russia.
Is it in NATO now?
Yeah. So they're safe.
They're protected. For now, we'll see.
Yeah, you never know.
And so when you got here, you don't speak any English, but were you like, you're, how tall are you? 7 feet?
6, 7.
6, 7. And were you like a large kid when you got here?
Yeah, so I never had like a growth spurt, how some people have, a couple inches in the summer. Yeah. I was just always the tallest and just steadily kept growing.
And is your brother tall too?
Yeah, he's 6.
So you guys were able to use your height to sort of fit in to some degree when you came here.
Yeah, you kind of get a little respect just when you're bigger than people, especially when you start getting, junior high school, because you most likely are playing sports, and everybody loves the people on the sports team. So it definitely helped us when we played basketball and stuff fit in quick.
Yeah, I was the only Indian kid in the neighborhood, and but I also happened to be the fastest guy in the neighborhood. And my dad was we had these races in our neighborhood, and my dad was the fastest guy at his age. They called him the rabbit. So when I in my neighborhood, I was the fastest guy in my grade school, high school. I was the fastest guy, and that mattered in terms of me getting picked first. and it made me like somehow a little hip when at the time, as you might remember, Indians weren't the hippest cats in the fucking neighborhood.
Jay, I love you're telling a childhood foot racing story to NFL linemen.
Well, I'm just trying to say.
Like, I feel you, bro. I was an athlete too. I won a foot race when I was 12.
Right, but the idea that coming here to a country and not speaking a word of English, it must have been difficult. I mean,
It was. I mean, obviously, I was 10, so I don't remember much, but I distinctly remember our main flight went from Moscow to JFK, and for whatever reason, it stands in my memory ingrained is we got our own can of like orange juice on a plane. We had never been on a plane before, and we'd have to share it. You know, poor family, 3 kids. It wasn't like here's a can. It was everybody gets a can, and Mickey was on it. And it was like the most American, thing you can imagine, and it's like ingrained in my brain forever. I don't remember where we were sitting on a plane, nothing else. All I remember is that, and then being in JFK overnight, like in the immigration offices before being able to fly to Seattle, and a long day of travel.
I mean, back then, being Estonian or Latvian or whatever, to our minds, at least in America, we were like, you're basically Russian. And,
Yes.
the villain in Rocky IV was a Russian. Enough that, like, every villain in all of our movies was a Russian. Was it hard being, like, were you perceived as Russian? Were you perceived in some way that you were like...
I think maybe at times, but really it was extra explanation as to it is a real country. People never heard of it. So even when Encino Man came out, he's from Estonia. And people thought, well, it's a film in Hollywood, and people thought that it was made up for the movie.
Right.
So they still wouldn't I'm like, no, that's a real place. Like, I know, I was born there. But now, obviously, most of that was pre-internet, You basically just went off of what people said. There was no way to fact-check things, but now you can, in fact, know that it exists.
Pauly
Shore. It does sound like a made-up Estonia. I think I thought that when Encino Man came out.
Where we grew up, it was in Vancouver, Washington, across the border from Portland. On the coast there is a city called Astoria, where they filmed Goonies, and so people know that town. So for a long time, they just thought I was misstating my town or my country, meaning Astoria. Like, where are you from? Estonia. Like, oh, I love the Oregon coast. Sure, yeah. I do too, but that's not where I was born.
And so how do you just learn English from school, or was it like that classic like television thing?
I mean, it was ESL classes. You're with other kids, whether they're Russian or whatever, that barely or don't speak at all, and you just slowly start learning. Obviously, being immersed in it is the quickest way. So there is another memory I had. My brother and I had just gotten like some money from my uncle, like $10-20 for doing something, and we were walking around his house, and we go to a convenience store. Had never seen one or been in one. Well, the soda machines, you just fill a cup. We don't know that, we're 10. You don't know you got to pay for it. And we're like, holy shit, you could just get soda? So we fill these like 24 ounces and start walking out, and the guy starts screaming at us. And we don't know what he's saying because we don't speak English. So luckily, whatever he's doing, luckily he's like, hand gestures, whatever. And we're like, we happen to have this cash that day, and obviously got change back and all that. But we're like, holy shit, you can just take free soda in America? That is great.
I mean, that's the kind of story we like to be heard over there in the Eastern Bloc. Like, yeah, free soda. What do you guys got? Like, we're proud of that kind of fucking nonsense.
How do you so with something coming to a new place, football is a uniquely American sport, and it's not the easiest one to pick up. There's a whole jargon and complex system of plays and positions that it's not like basketball where you could kind of universality or soccer. So you come over at that formative age. You're 6'7". You and your brother are big guys, and someone asks you to be on a football team in high school.
Well, so we were mostly basketball players. Like you said, it's universal Eastern Europe. I mean, you see the guys in NBA that everybody can shoot and play basketball. So we played soccer and basketball, and then started getting into high school, and obviously big guys, the high school coaches kept wanting me to play football. Well, I know nothing about football. I don't know what's a tackle, what's anything. I don't know a single thing except it's on TV. We don't ever watch it. We had I think I had a Cowboys starter jacket, but not because I knew what the Cowboys were. It's because we went to Value Village to buy our clothes, and there was a windbreaker, so that's the one you own now. But I was always afraid of getting hurt because I thought basketball was my love, and football is a physical sport from the little bit I had seen. So I'm like, no, I don't want to play. I don't want to play. Like, it's not for me. And then after my junior year of basketball, I got on a select team in Seattle, and we went and traveled to a few tournaments in Vegas and Long Beach, and I was like the 11th, 12th guy on this team, and I'm playing with guys that are all going to University of Washington, USC, all these D1 schools, but I made the team. So, but I barely play, and you kind of see yourself when you do get on a court, like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to be a basketball player because Michael Jordan is my height, and he can dunk at ease and handle the ball. I cannot handle the ball. I'm a center because in a small town, or not small, but small enough town, I'm a big guy, so I'm a center. And there's 6, 7 guys playing point guard in the NBA. So I was like, well, that's out. So it was a fun experience. Still played my senior year and had a lot of fun, but I basically decided, well, there's 1 year left. Let me just try football. That way I don't ever have that thought of a 40-year-old being, what if? So I tried it. The other reason was my JV basketball coach for the first year or so, he at that time became the head football coach. And I loved him, one of my favorite coaches I've ever had. So I trusted him. So I was like, all right, let's just give this a shot. And I played in high school. I was this height, but I was like 220 pounds, I think. So I was lanky, and I was a wide receiver, tight end, kind of just catching balls and playing some defensive end.
And then because of your size, you started getting scouted? Or you developed a knack for the game, obviously, but you had to have some type of recognition coming out of high school.
So we had a athlete in our school who played football and basketball, just like a Cordell Stewart type, could just move, do everything. And he was coaches from Eastern Washington came to see him because he's on the basketball team with me, and happened to be at a game where somebody was inbounding and I stole the ball and went up for a dunk, which I almost never was able to pull off or do it. I can't jump that high. But in the process of it, I got fouled, and the coaches who were there to watch my friend Rex, they were like, well, hold on, who's this guy? And all of a sudden thought I was athletic enough, and they had a vision for me that they didn't tell me, of course. His first thought was, he's like, oh, I can put weight on that guy. Just looking at my frame and body. So they offered me a full scholarship to go to a Division I AA school, and I'm coming from a small a family but no money. Like, well, school's paid for. Let me go play football in college. So everything was kind of like, let me try it. I didn't like football. First year, I was like, this is intense, but I can do this for free school. We can't pay for it otherwise. So just kept going, and then as you kind of like anybody else you see, like, you got to fall in love with the process a little bit. So as I did it more and more, started liking what it was doing, and started loving it.
Then in college, though, you had this. You ended up getting drafted in 2005. So your college career, not just liking it, you had to stand out, have some way. I mean, because you'd think it was a 1AA school, or
yeah,
1AA to get a look, to get drafted out of a 1AA school. You must have had an incredible college career.
So it's one of those things where I never thought I was anybody while it was happening. People would tell me like, oh, you're doing so great. Or one of my coaches one time made a comment to some other player like, oh, he's going to be playing on Sundays. And I'm like, how? I'm just trying to play football here. But so my first year, I redshirted and I was a tight end because that's what they signed me as. Then my following year, I put on some weight and moved me to defensive end. And then my sophomore year, I became an offensive lineman. So that summer, I put on a bunch of weight and started learning offensive line skills. So played 3 years offensive line, and then I got drafted. My first play ever as an offensive lineman, actually, in college, was against Terrell Suggs at Arizona State.
Did he get by you?
Yeah. That was the season he set the NCAA sack record. And he had a few in our game, but none were directly of my fault.
Hayes, that mic is not loud enough, or you're not close enough, or whatever it is. So that reminds me of the story when we were at a bar with you and Jared Allen, who was obviously a defensive end. And the story was, I think we asked you, has Jared Allen ever gotten a sack on you? And you said, go ask him. And we asked him, and he's like, we've never got Roos. And that's incredible, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
He hates, and I love that fact, so I bring it up whenever I can. Because actually, he went to a 1AA school also. He went to Idaho State, so we played against each other in college. I think his junior year maybe, and then we played against each other. I think a couple times when we were the Chiefs, a few times with the Vikings. So we had many times that we went against each other, but he never got a sack on me.
How?
He did get one going to my inside, but he knew as well as I did that next to me was Steve Hutchinson, who's a Hall of Famer, and he was supposed to come with me. And so as soon as I stepped, Jared already knew that Hutch is supposed to be there, and he gave him like a move and got a sack, and he has not let Hutch let that down either, I don't think so.
It's funny because you when you watch football, I was telling Hayes this earlier today, I'm like, you don't think of like the minute details of these little, you got a sack off him, you didn't get a sack off me, like that. It doesn't, you can't see it. I mean, maybe you can see it.
No.
I've watched every single Bears game since I was 10, and I can't quite see the line, what that kind of detail.
Sometimes it's harder, other times it's really easy to see who messed up.
Yeah.
Sometimes a guy comes free, and it doesn't necessarily mean it was the offensive line's fault. You could kind of look at what they did and see that, the running back must be there, or sometimes the quarterback knows the guy's coming and it's his job just to get rid of it. And if he doesn't, now the O-line gets credit with a sack, but you have some guys like Romo that are really good at, this deciphering that after the fact and be like, well, it looks like this guy should have done this, but in the stat book, it still just goes. Line.
Romo almost is like a fortune teller. It looks, and you're like, not obviously Romo had a great career, but you're like, if you're that good, like, couldn't you? Can you do it in the game, or is it just?
Well, if he's wrong with the microphone, it doesn't matter. You just go.
He had a great career. Tony Romo, incredible. But are all?
Well, because he still watches film like he used to, like when he played.
That's the incredible thing about the sport. When you see a long run or a great pass in football, and it's awesome why guys like Romo give you that inside perspective, because it looks like it just worked. And, the running back got to go on a 15-yard scamper. But really, there were like a million things that were happening to make that play work at the same time. And if one guy messes up, you just don't get to see it. But it's egregious when, you see someone get tackled in the backfield. Then it's obvious why something broke down or didn't work. But to have a successful play, it's like everything has to check out at the same time.
Well, yeah, you got 22 guys in the field, and I don't know who said it. I saw it a while ago. There's exceptions like the Philly push and like when you're trying to get a yard, but generally speaking, every offensive play is designed to score. Every one of them, if done perfectly. Every defensive play is designed to get 0 yards or negative yards. That's how it's drawn up. So you're doing that fight, with 11 guys on each side at all times. All it takes is 1 foot, 1 step, and some guy gets a window and the whole play changes.
So we're talking to you on the day of the NFL draft, which is going to take place in a couple hours. So you guys know it's so nuts. And, Jay and I are Bears fans, so there's been so much talk about this draft for a really long time. But I want to ask about your draft experience, because after college, you you were second round pick to the Tennessee Titans, and you ended up playing your entire career there, which I think is rare that someone
It
plays their
is, yeah.
whole career in the same thing.
Also, you played 100 and you started 148 of 148 games. Is that right? Like, perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
in the NFL.
When you look at this game, you're like, how violent is it in the scrums? Like, what's happening? Paul Soder wants me to ask if anyone sticks a finger up your ass. He wants to, that people grab your balls. He wants to know that.
Yeah, those things happen for sure. Yeah.
And do you know who did it?
Not always. The pile's big enough, Sometimes you can see, but I mean, there's guys that somebody just did it. I feel like a year or two ago, like tackle someone and then turn the ankle a little extra. Usually trying to injure him or.
Well, that's what's crazy about playing that many consecutive games, because I say this when I watch football with my son and his friends. I try to tell them the difference between being injured or hurt. I'm like, every person out there is injured.
Oh yeah,
is hurt.
Yeah.
Everyone out there is hurt. Something on their body they're getting treated for on a daily basis, but they're not injured. If you're injured, you're out. So when I was, coaching Pop Warner, I'm like, I just say to the kids, are you hurt or are you injured? That's the delineation of it, because you're just playing through something.
Yeah, can you deal with it? And if you can't, you're coming out.
So you play that many consecutive games. I would say, like, what was your worst injury? But there wasn't one that was big enough to keep you out.
Well, I wanted them to be all consecutive. My streak ended at, I think it was 113 or 115 or something like that, because I played one game in Buffalo with the early onset of appendicitis. I didn't know it was that really at first. We were flying there Saturday and stomach's hurting, kind of like, I don't like this. Talk to don't sleep great, but it's okay. Talk to the doctors in the morning. They give me some medicine, and like he's doing a little check on it. And he's like, yeah, it might be your appendix. But so I have some nice drugs and play the game. Don't feel it during the game. Afterwards, getting on the plane, and doc's like, how you feeling? I'm like, great, because I have the drugs in me still, and some liquid help as well. And go home, and that night, that is now my level of, from one to the worst pain you've ever experienced in your life. That appendix is the worst thing I've ever experienced. So couldn't sleep, kept rolling over, couldn't find a spot. It was just like a knife just being twisted inside you. And finally, like, I think 4 a.m., I came out of the bathroom, looked at my wife, and I was like, I'm going to go to the hospital. I'll text you when I get there. So I text the doctor. I'm like, hey, which ER do you want me to go to? And so he met me there. And of course, my phone doesn't work, so I have to ask the ER tech while he's like putting me for a MRI or something, or use his phone, and it's T9 text. So I'm texting my wife's phone saying, hey, I'm in this room downstairs, get here whenever you can. And a couple hours later, they had it taken out of me. So that was a Monday morning, and I still wanted to play Sunday, because by Wednesday, Thursday, I'm like, it feels all right. Like, and they wouldn't let me play because we were playing the Colts. So I would have been playing Freeney, which you've seen his bull rush, and they're like, if you take one bull rush too hard, it's going to pop those sutures, and now you're going to be bleeding all over the field. So that's how my streak ended.
Wow.
But I played the next week.
We had Ryan Leaf on the podcast. He talked a lot about the struggles he went through with opioids after he played. He didn't take them when he was playing, but I always wondered during that time frame, are they really doled out in the training facility that casually, or were they? I imagine it's different now.
I think they used to be a lot more free even before I got there. Like, it would be kind of like, hey, if something hurts, and they would give you, it wasn't that strong of stuff. It was, stronger than extra strength Tylenol, kind of thing. If you had something truly going on, you could probably get something, an injection or something. I think before I even started, it used to be just like, you just go take them, like whatever you need.
Yeah, like an open bowl of like breath mints.
But I was always, because of so many guys having issues, I was always so worried about that addiction hitting. So even like the injury I had, that was my last play, that I had knee surgery, they obviously gave me two different kinds for the pain, and it was like 4 times a day, and then I within 2 days went to like 3 times, and then the next day I went to two to see how much pain I could tolerate to just wean off of it right away. That was 10 years ago. I actually just found the pills the other day, right on in the drawer. Still have them. But I forgot what hydrocodone, maybe I think is what it was.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably 15 pills in there. I just keep forgetting. I don't want to like flush those, so I need to take them to like a pharmacy or something to have them destroy them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was always so afraid of it being a thing. So I just, whenever I got any, it was always take as little as possible and just deal with the pain.
Yeah, those pills ended up being a fucking disaster. I mean, obviously, the pain is the pain, and people should treat it. But boy, I mean, I don't know if you know Ryan Leaf, but boy, his story, you're like, my God. I mean, my God.
I don't know personally, no, but yeah,
he's a great guy. He's a great guy. I love him
because he played at Washington State, so it's right by Spokane, so his story is well known over there.
Mike, you don't have to answer this honestly, but it's a real question. Did you ever look at a guy? Let's say the ball's going to the other side. They're going to run a sweep to the right. Did you ever look at the guy across the line because you're dog ass tired in the middle of a game and say, "Hey, let's take this play off and get a breather"?
Not in a real game, no.
Not in a real.
But in the preseason, there was at times some gentleman agreement to let's make it to the regular season. me and Jared always would, like you still play, but you're not gonna, I think I think maybe it was my last year, we were playing the last preseason game, which means nothing, and for at least starters, and it was the Saints and Will Smith, who was their DN, and he was all pro. He's an amazing player. And I'm walking to start the game to our huddle, and he like looks over at me and goes, "Roos?" He's like, "We good?" I'm like, "We're good." And it was kind of like, yep, we're understanding each other. Like the running play is going the other way. You just kind of like, okay, just hold each other and like kind of move and just take it a little easy.
Because I thought when they added a couple of years ago 2 extra games to the NFL season, I didn't need to see that. I didn't need to see that because I know what I can imagine what it takes to get through an NFL season and the stuff you have to put your body through. And I thought 2 extra games is a lot of extra real football games when stuff's been decided in terms of positioning for the playoffs already. And I'm surprised that the NFL, the players union allowed that to go through. I mean, I know it's a revenue grab. You get 2 more weeks of football, but like that's a lot of football.
It is being, there is, look at the money now and players are getting, it's insane. So I just saw that they announced that whatever it was a couple months ago, the salary cap for this year, I think is $250 million. My rookie year, so it was 20 years ago almost, but still my rookie year was 125.
Wow.
And there's guys now whose cap hit is like 60, So there's a lot of money there.
When Chris Johnson got over 2,000, what was there a goal when the running back Chris Johnson got over 2,000 yards? Was there like a team, like your offensive line goal to get him there? Were you guys talking about it? Was he like, does he thank you after a run? I'm like, how does any of that happen?
Yeah. So that year we started bad and it was not going to be a good year. And we kind of started realizing, I think the first game that happened was when we played the Patriots in a blizzard, and somehow their shoes didn't slip and all of ours did. And like Randy Moss is running for a 60-yard touchdown, Anyway, we lose. I think it was 52-0 or something like that. Bad. But Chris, all we could do is try to run. Chris got over 100 yards, 100 something. That was what ended up being the first of like, I think 7 or 8, 9 straight games of 100 yards rushing. So we start realizing there's a 200-yard game, and like now we're taking pride in like, well, at least let's have a good season as offensive line. And then you get closer, like, 5 games out, like no matter what people say in locker rooms, we're sitting there doing the math. We're like, okay, 4 games, we need this much. We got to average this. If we can get this team, a little extra, like you definitely at that point want to get 2,000 yards. The shittiest thing, he got to 2,000 barely. that last game was in Seattle. We weren't going to playoffs, and there was this one run, like a 45-yard touchdown run that Ed Hockley called back for a holding call on the fullback. And if you guys watch football, if I showed you the play, you would immediately go, that's not holding. Mainly because Chris is so fast. By the time what looked like holding happened, Chris was 10 yards past it.
Right.
Anyways, so they call it back. We still get the dozen yards, but that was an extra 45 yards. And found out after the game, sitting there talking with our offensive coordinator and Jeff Fisher, and it said, had that run counted, we were never going to pass again and get the record.
Oh.
Like they were going to try to get the all-time record and just say, who cares about the game? Let's just get the record.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And then the next fall in training camp, every training camp, NFL refs go to teams and like do a couple of days of practicing, whatever. Ed is our ref in our training camp. So of course he gets booed in the meeting room, and he he apologized and admitted that it was not a call and he should not have called it. And we're all like, okay, well, and refs get graded down and maybe don't get playoff games, and we all like, you, who cares? I don't care about that.
Right. Oh, there's a whole evaluation system for referees to determine how they do, to see what games that they can officiate. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the draft's today. Do you follow the NFL still?
Not so much that I forgot the draft was this weekend.
You
but
have an opinion about the Bears and who
I watch it every weekend.
Do you have an opinion about? We have the first pick and the 9th pick, thanks to Carolina, and that.
Who's their quarterback now?
Well, we traded Justin Fields to Pittsburgh for a 4th. Did we get a 4th, Hayes?
Yeah.
Okay. Hayes is despondent about that. And they're going to take, by anybody's guess, they're going to take Caleb Williams, the quarterback for the USC. I mean, if they don't take him, it's going to be the fucking shock of the world. The big question is, we also have number 9. And in my opinion, and I, what I know about football, which is a little, not like you, but I feel like we should take offensive line to just do everything we can to protect this quarterback and get him up to Mahomes level. I know that's a lot to ask, but like the more we protect him, the better chance we have.
Yeah, who's the other stud quarterback or two that are in the draft?
Derek May.
That's the question. Bo Nix, isn't that the question is, what positions would you draft to make the quarterback to get the best offense? If you were building an offense around a really highly touted quarterback, what do you think are the crucial positions to have a successful offense?
I mean, line. So it starts with you got to have. Now you can get that with free agency if you're doing some other things well enough to make it sexy enough for guys to go there. But you need an offensive line.
And then build around.
You need obviously one good receiver, or at least obviously someone to throw it to be a threat, and a decent running back. But if you have a good line, a decent running back becomes a really good running back.
Yeah, but we have 2 good receivers. We have 2 really good receivers. We're just guessing, obviously. We're just trying to figure out what this GM's going to do.
I haven't watched enough college. I saw both those Bo Nix and Caleb play a little bit, but based on some of the skill sets, I would probably take Bo over Caleb. But it's a crapshoot. Caleb Williams could be Sam Bowie. It's like
totally.
Yeah.
There's a 6.
He was a sure shot guy to be first pick, and Jordan was 3rd. Like
69% of these quarterback first rounders don't work. Doesn't happen.
Right.
I mean, it's but I think the politics of it now, he's like such a consensus first rounder that I think it would be like career suicide if you didn't pick him and he succeeded.
That's been said many times over the last 15 years about first picks being quarterbacks, and some of them are on their 4th, 5th teams. So it's such a crapshoot. It doesn't really matter. It's, as a GM, are you willing to put your reputation for it?
Yeah.
If you are, then go for it and live with it. If you fuck up, then own it and move on.
Yeah, because the learning curve of being in the league is this is why I don't make a big deal out of the draft, and I know that it's part of media and everyone talks about it, but you don't hear of any of none of these guys like you get to go. Very few of them go to the Pro Bowl when they are highly touted coming out of college. So the learning has to take place within the league. I would think better to bet on a guy. The reason that Jay mentioned I was so upset about trading Fields is because I thought it was a bird in hand. The guy's had 3 years in the league. He's learned from all those experiences. He knows the pace of the game. He knows the nuances, how quick it all happens, the different ins and outs of the other defenses. Like, that's better for me, to build on than a kid coming out of a college.
Well, yeah, I think it comes down to, and this is the way I always look at any position, is a guy's work ethic. If you have work ethic and you're smart, which means you can learn, and the work ethic means you will put the effort in to learn it, that's the two most important things. Like, I don't care about your skills, because if you're willing to learn or work and smart enough, you can learn a skill. You can learn to throw a better spiral. You can learn better footwork, or can't coach speed, and you can't really coach work ethic.
When you were in the league,
if Justin Fields, maybe they didn't feel like he had those other things and were trying to go move on. Because if he did, then yeah, you'd be better off spending the picks and money on protecting him. Get a better line and one more offensive weapon, or a better defense, or there's other ways to do it. So my thing always is, especially with these quarterbacks, I don't know how to really evaluate any of them because I've never spoken to them.
Did you have
super talented, but
when you were like work ethic in an NFL team, did you guys get tested on all the material that you have to know before going into a game, the formations, what they're likely to do, the probabilities of it they're in this formation, or did you just talk about it?
Yeah, different people watch film and study different amounts. Different people, you absorb information differently. Like, I, in 10 years, almost never took notes. And every week you're putting a different game plan because now you're doing this play this way. But my brain could just visualize it, and then you practice it, and then I have it. Or like which blitzes they do. My memory just was that good. I was okay with that. Other guys, Kevin Mawai, took endless notes, and he was a Hall of Famer and really good at his job. But whatever he wrote down in a notebook, I also had it, but I just didn't write it down.
Through the reps.
Yeah.
You learned, yeah.
And the other thing with the understanding football, just the game. It's the dumbest basic principle, but do you understand how football's played? I tell guys all the time, younger people, like, if you're left tackle and there's a guy walking outside the defensive end, one of those two is going to go outside, and one of them has to come inside because they have gaps. So if you just understand that, you don't overthink it or like go somewhere because like, oh man, he beat me. And like, well, what did you think was going to happen? If they send both guys in the same gap, then they might make a play, but one of them fucked up and probably going to get yelled at by the coach if they don't make the play. So understanding, like 4 defensive linemen, if they move, somebody has to fill where they vacated. Or all of a sudden the safety is doing this. Well, now his space is open. Well, somebody's got to go there eventually. It might be a linebacker, whoever. Like, just understanding the basic principles of how football's played, and it starts slowing down and getting simpler. Not easy, but simpler.
That's one of the biggest things I've noticed from having played my semi-pro days with the gunslingers until watching the NFL is the plays in the NFL change during the plays in the NFL. Like the situation you see when the pre-snap read, then the once the ball's snapped, and then after the ball snapped, it's all changing. It's like amorphic. Like they show one thing and then it becomes another thing, and then in the middle of that play they can go man to zone and show different things. I'm so shocked every time a pass gets completed in the NFL because I know there's so many things that went into making that happen. It's just moving at such a quick rate.
It is, yeah. It's some of the stuff that receivers read and what they do based off the movements with defensive backs and stuff. I couldn't do it. But my brain was never there. I'm on the line. If that was my job, or if I was the coach that, I would study the hell out of it. And everybody has little things. There's always your foot's turned out a little bit, or like you watch film and a guy's got the same posture all the time, a linebacker, and all of a sudden his hip is turned a little bit, and you can see he's like, wants to look somewhere. Like, well, he's going to do something, obviously, because that's not how he usually stands.
Oh,
so those tiny things, but that's hard to do. Like, I didn't do it as a rookie because it's so fast. You're just, trying to piece it together. But as you study it more, watch it, you start realizing that there's little things everybody has that can help you.
Let's talk show business for a second. You're a comedy fan, and I know you're an enormous MacGruber fan.
Funny movie, yeah.
Great movie. We all love MacGruber. And you were a Broken Lizard fan. Like, how did you end up? I can't remember. Hayes was like, how did you meet him? I'm like, I don't remember the story. I mean,
because I remember when we were hanging out in Boston doing Super Troopers 2, and then Jay mentioned you were also in Baby Makers.
Yes.
So in Baby Makers, Mike plays the security guard at a sperm bank, and is it Paul Schneider goes in there to try to get, and he gets in.
Yeah, I get to throw.
Yeah,
I get to throw Paul out of the sperm.
Throw him out, and then in Super Troopers 2, he is machine gun wielding Rob Lowe's sort of thug, and you're exchanging gunfire with me and Hayes on the other side. With you were also with your other offensive lineman pal, right?
Yeah, Mike Otto.
Yeah, Mike Otto, and the two of you had machine guns, and you gave me a line in that movie too, like one or two lines, right?
Yeah. One line. Yeah.
But how did you
still getting some checks?
You do, sweet. How did you end up in these? How did you end up with us? How did we meet?
So with you guys, it was for I think it was my first or second year. Our long snapper got hurt, so they brought in a guy who had just been cut, from Buffalo, John Dornbos, who ended up leaving the Titans and played for Philly for like 12 more years, I think. But you guys were friends with John, and he was in the original Beer Fest.
And he's a magician.
On the British team,
and he's a magician.
Yeah. So John, he was now, I think, out of Nashville, and you guys were all coming to do a show. So I text him, like, just asking about you guys, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think he gave me Stolhansky's number to text you guys." And then me and some friends went to the show, and then we all hung out after till I think 5 a.m. getting drunk, and friends since then.
That's right. Okay, great.
Yeah, that was like 2008, I think, or something like that, or 07.
Well, as I mentioned to you, Hayes, Mike is a big golfer as well, and go to Scotland every year, right, or every now and then.
Usually Ireland, but right. This year we're going to Scotland.
And I've written a Scottish golf trip movie that turns into something like The Hangover. So I can see a future where Mike is in a kilt over there, doing something.
I got told you, I already had the kilt, so I had one custom made.
I think it's going to happen. Because we can't.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah, we can't really get you into Super Troopers 3 because you're probably in prison after all that gunshots you were shooting at the cops. Your character. Unless we do a prison scene, but you never know. I mean, it could be.
Well, yeah, I talked to Lemmy about that when he was here about a month ago, and he said the same thing. And I forgot what my suggestion was because I know the premise of the movie, and because of the premise of the movie, let's just say my skin tone is wrong.
We need Indians.
Being put in there.
We need Indians.
Yeah.
What's funny is that we need Indians, but we found out recently that Broken Lizard is a mostly Indian comedy group. And here's how. Obviously me. But Eric Stolhansky did 23andMe and found out that he's 1/8 Cree Indian. Paul Soder did 23andMe and found out he's 1/8 Chippewa, which puts us over the top. 3 out of 5 Indians. Boom.
That's awesome.
All right, this is a very special addendum to Mustache Tales. We stopped the episode. We were saying goodbye, and then we heard this other story about Troy Polamalu. So can you tell us the story?
I forgot to. I had one pop up when we were talking earlier, and this is always one of my favorites because it's just what he's supposed to do. So the clip that most people have seen, Palomalo jumping over the offensive line and tackling the quarterback was he jumped over me. And so it was the Titans playing the Steelers here. And, we're on goal, I think 1 yard line. I don't think it was a QB sneak, but some kind of run play. And Troy just is betting that we're going to go on one, which most teams do. So Kerry's doing his, blue 80, and my hand's in the ground. And as soon as I'm about to come up because the snap count's going, you can just kind of sense something hovering over you. And as Kerry basically gets the ball out, gets tackled, and everybody no one knows what happened except for Kerry and Troy. And so we just kind of like everybody's standing around. We got to respot the ball, and Kerry just goes, "Hey, Troy, nice play." Like what? Like what?
Just
He
timed
did
it perfectly.
He timed it so perfectly. It was not offsides. Like he sacked them before anybody even moved, and all he could really tell him was, "Nice job, man." I got actually one more.
Oh, good.
I popped in my head just now. There, we were playing when Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's everybody's favorite guy, when he played here. We were going out of our own end zone or whatever. Just I forgot to play even, but like it was just the epitome of Ryan Fitzpatrick. He throws a pass. A guy is kind of almost ready to hit him, like doesn't. He gets the ball off, and we're trying to like walking back to the huddle or something like that. Anyway, he got close to his face, and the ref, I forgot which ref it was, but he looks and goes, "Ryan, did he hit you in the face?" And Ryan's like, "Yeah." Ref throws the flag. We get 15 yards. We get back in the huddle, and Fitz goes, "He didn't touch me." And we're like, "All right."
It's like the answer is always yes. When the ref said, "Did you have a personal foul committed against you in the middle of the game?" Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I did.
Obviously, of course they did. Can't take it back once the flag's thrown. So
that's amazing. That's incredible. I love it.
So that's two of my favorite plays that I've had. Yeah.
Let's vouch. We're gonna vouch for something. I have an app called Vouch Vault. Sign up for it. It's kind of like the Instagram of recommendations. So I'll go first. So today, there's a movie. You can see it here. It's called Squaring the Circle. Paul Soder from Broken Lizard saw this movie and told me to watch it. And it's basically about these two British guys in like the late 60s, I guess, who fell in with Pink Floyd, the guys in Pink Floyd, and somehow they were photographers and they were layout guys, and they ended up laying out some of the early Pink Floyd albums, Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon. And these pieces of artwork became so provocative and so exciting that they kind of took over rock and roll. And then they did all the Led Zeppelin covers, and they're like, and they just are these like, these classic British guys. And it's just a cool ass movie, but with all this great artwork. They talk about the I think it's Wish You Were Here, where there was that guy who's on fire was shaking hands with the other dude on Pink Floyd's album.
Okay.
They shot it at Warner Bros. One guy's like a stuntman who's fully on fire, and he's shaking hands with another guy, and it's like a kind of a suggestion of what the music business is, because one of the Pink Floyd guys go, the music business, you get banned, and whatever, they did that. That was Australian, but whatever.
That is such a lost art form, because now if you get an album, you're just doing it on the computer. You don't see any of the images associated with the art.
Noel Gallagher is in the documentary, and he's from Oasis, and he was talking about a story where he arrived late to meet his daughter. And she's like, "Where were you?" And he goes, "Oh, I was doing the album cover." And she goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "The artwork, the layout." And she goes, "For what?" He goes, the music, the album cover. And he goes, like, she goes, "Oh, that old stuff." And he goes, "No, yeah. I mean," he goes, "that 1 inch by 1 inch little piece of artwork?"
Thumbnail.
Yeah. He goes, "I was doing that. Cost $100,000. Nobody cares.
I took my kids into a record store and we got a bunch of stuff when we were down in Texas, and they were fascinated opening up the album covers and looking at the pictures, and then the lyrics of the songs were in the jackets, and there was a poster that folded out.
So cool.
And I was like, yeah,
So cool.
part of it.
What do you got, Hayes?
I think about talking to Mike, I wanted to vouch for like all the football movies. I was thinking of a ranking of North Dallas 40,
What a movie!
The Last Boy Scout, Any Given Sunday, Brian's Song. There's so many great. Rudy, I would put up there absolutely. But I'm going the other way. I've been wanting to vouch for this for a while. There's an app that I use that's a sound machine, and it's called Brainwaves, and the inside of it looks like this.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, so the difference is I can't fall asleep to silence, and I used to fall asleep to podcasts, but then when the podcast conversation would end, I would wake up. It was kind of funky. So I do this Brainwave. The thing I like about this app is you can choose the white noise sound, like, river or forest or babbling brook. But then there's pulses underneath that can determine the depth of your sleep, and it brings you in and out of sleep. So it has different selections. Like it makes like a whoa, 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 whoa sound subliminal sound underneath the white noise machine. So I always only used one selection on this for a long time, called deep sleep. You can do deep sleep, dreamy sleep, power nap, lucid dreaming, meditation, reduce anxiety, all these different things that you plug in, that the sound would trigger in your brain. And I was always just use deep sleep because I just needed it as a sound machine. But I started playing around with it the last couple of weeks. And if I do different types of sleep, I end up having different types of sleep. Like I very rarely remember my dreams, but I did do lucid dreaming a couple nights ago, and I had a lucid dream.
Wow.
Which is kind of cool. Where I was aware that I was dreaming. And then if I do dreamy sleep, I have a dream and I remember it. There's also one selection here called hangover relief. So I haven't tried that one, but I usually just get another cocktail.
I'm surprised you haven't tried that one, considering the
Do they
right here the whole time.
They also have a wet dream option there for you.
They should. They should. Maybe that's night meditation is probably that.
I've had one wet dream in my life, and the first time I had it, I woke up and I'm like, that was awesome. And I'm like, this is why I'm on the planet. I need to have another wet dream. And I remember looking at the cover of TV Guide with Cher on it, and I would get rock hard. She had a beaded dress. I'd get rock hard and fall asleep. Never had another wet dream. Never had another fucking wet dream. My greatest tragedy in my life. Greatest tragedy.
You were trying to manifest one?
Yeah. I'm like, let's go. Every night.
The weirdest part of that story is it was 2 weeks ago, and it was a TV Guide with Cher.
Do they have anything called brown noise on that app? No, I'm not even kidding. I heard that brown noise is like a new kind of noise that triggers like the greatest amount of sleep. They don't have that, right?
They don't. They have. I thought that just made you take a shit. Brown noise. They have pre-exercise noise. Yeah, it's weird how the depth of your sleep. You go and you ever wake up at different times, and like if you feel tired or energized, doesn't really matter on the amount of sleep you got. It's where you wake up in your sleep cycle. Yeah,
no doubt. What do you
Euphoria. got? Maybe Euphoria is wet dream.
Could be.
If there was a wet dream setting, I would download that app. And
it's got to be Euphoria. I think I've been sitting here looking at it the whole time.
Every night I'd do it. What do you got, Mike?
Well, since I wasn't sure this was happening, but when you said movie, actually brought up a movie I recently watched that I'm gonna vouch that. It's called Sisu.
Yes.
SISU.
Yeah.
And it's a Finnish movie. I'm from Estonia, so it actually plays really well. But have you seen it yet?
I have seen Sisu. I play golf with these guys who are Sisu fanatics.
I did not think I would be so into it. It is a truly badass film. Do you know what it is?
No, what's it about?
So it's at the very end of World War II. It's set in North Finland, like middle of nowhere. There's Nazis there with tanks. I think they know. I can't remember. I think they know the war is ended or is about to. But they're still doing their thing. And this old guy, just picture 60-year-old John Wick. Like he was a guy, but he's retired. He's just living off this farm, and he has a bunch of gold that he's buried. And through some things, the Nazis figure out that he has it, and he's trying to get out with it still. And the action sequences, the way the deaths happen, the realism in it is just unbelievable. And he's single-handedly getting chased by these dozens and dozens of Nazis and tanks and guns, and he's just taking bullets, it's phenomenal film. I watched it with my wife, my wife was like anxious because it's so realistic, and I was just loving it for how they were able to make it so realistic. Like you feel the pain and like just absolutely badass movie.
Did it just come out?
It's from
Or is it
just in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think it was made in 22, but I think it actually came out last year.
Yeah, it's got every if you like the amount of action in a John Wick movie, you're gonna like Sisu.
Yeah, just really, really well done, though, and just the story itself. It's a pretty awesome movie. The first death, I don't even know how to explain to people that you will not see it coming. The first kill is just you just go fuck.
And you know, you get to go back in time and have the Nazis be the bad guys, which we all. I think we can all, Republican, Democrat, can we all agree on we don't like Nazis? Can we do that?
I can paint you one of the deaths if you want to just try to sell it to you. There was a bunch of landmines going off, and the guy is like in the middle of it, and the Nazis will slowly catch him, and of course send two guys like, hey, go get him, go check it out. So they're like gently walking, trying to figure out. You can't see because there's dust and everything from the landmines blowing up. And then all of a sudden, all you see is coming out of the smoke is landmine hits him right in the face and
blows him up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna
but
watch
it's deathly silent, and these Nazis are just like scared shitless, walking. All of a sudden, they hear the, and then he just comes right out of the smoke, hits him in the face, and
designing a good death kill is like designing a good scare or crafting a good joke, right? There's got to be a setup and then a payoff to it. And kills, you think people have seen every which way and they know it's coming. So to get one like that, an original one, is cool.
Yeah, it's like
it's gritty.
Yeah,
I think gritty is a good way of describing it.
But that wasn't. I've always wondered if that Sisu story was like a Finnish like legend or tale or whatever. I mean, I know you're not from there, but there's another good action movie called something Monkey that Dev Patel's in.
It's not out yet.
It's out now.
Is it? Yeah, I saw the preview for it. It looks really awesome.
It takes it's like in that movie Man on Fire. Eventually you piss off Denzel Washington enough that he catches fire and then look out. This is similar. Dev Patel waits a long time, but then when he gets pissed off, eventually everyone's going to pay. Everyone's going to pay.
I can't wait to see that.
I enjoy movies like that.
It's called Angry Monkey, Brass Monkey, something Monkey, whatever, something.
Monkey Paw.
No, Monkey Paw is the name of Jordan Peele's company.
That's right.
You're right, though. It's like that. I'm going to look it up real quick. Dev.
I got it.
Patel Monkey. I can look that up on Mendia. No,
Monkey Man.
Monkey Man. That's
Monkey
right.
Man.
Monkey Man. All right, good.
Did you say I can look that up on Mendia?
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't want to write J. Chandrasekhar Monkey. Like, you don't want to do that. There's not that kind of show.
Well, I already had IMDb pulled up, so I didn't have to do that.
I want to promote my shows in Spokane, Washington next week, May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I'm doing 5 shows. I'm telling all news stories. You guys got anything to promote, or are you good?
I'm good, Jay. That's you're coming up towards my neck of the neighborhood. If you're
Yeah.
in Spokane, maybe pop over.
Okay, good. Are you really that close to Spokane?
No, it's like 12 hours or something.
All right, that's our episode of Mustache Tales. Hey, I don't even think we've had one guy with a mustache on here yet, or girl.
I know, but
girl.
Mike was smoking a cigar today, which really feels like our vibe for Mustache Tales. I'm going to bust one out.
It does.
Thanks for being here, Mike. Great to see you again.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, man.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Mustache Tales.